Moe, and I would like to refute to the main proposition by my opponent that states that legalizing prostitution will or would not effectively deter crime or negative aspects that come with the selling of sex. I would like to refute this by stating that legalizing of prostitution will solve the negative aspects that come with the selling of sex. I would like to talk about my points of decriminalizing prostitution will better protect individuals in the sex industry from violence, abuse, and psychological damage. And I would also like to talk about HIV and AIDS transmission. So my opponent states in her supporting claim that legalization would not change the psychological effects on the prostitutes. I believe that decriminalizing prostitution would better protect the individuals. She stated that the amount of post-traumatic stress in veterans, rape victims, and other victims are equal with prostitutes, and I believe that that does not, it's an invalid claim to her proposition. And I would like to state that a government commissioned study examined that the effects of legalization in New Zealand, and they found out that 70% of sex workers were more likely to report violence to the police. And after 4 years of the legalization in New Zealand, the estimated number of sex workers decreased from 5,000 to 2,000. Also, in her supporting claim, she stated that legalization would deepen the repression of women. Unfortunately, she did not have any evidence against that. She stated that it would allow modern slavery and social morality. I have evidence stating that according to Barbara Brentz, an associate professor of sociology at the University of Nevada, she quoted that regulated brothels offer particular ways of dealing with pragmatic safety issues and minimizing actual violence. Nevada brothels offer specific mechanisms to protect workers via the ways transactions are organized, the ways technology is ordered, the visibility of customers, the bureaucratic relationships among customers, managers, and workers, and the cooperation with police based on the mere fact of their legality. All of these mechanisms work to eliminate systematic violence and to discourage an atmosphere of danger and risk. Also, I would like to state that according to a prostitution and sex crimes article by Kirby Cundiff, Associate Professor of Finance at Northeastern State University, he stated that if prostitution was legalized in the United States, that the rape rate would decrease by roughly 25%. That's about 25,000 rapes per year. In addition, unfortunately, my advocate didn't stress the issue of HIV and AIDS. That's, I believe, is very important to prostitution. So my supporting claim states that if prostitution were legal, HIV and AIDS transmission will decrease. Sex workers are often stigmatized, marginalized, and criminalized by the societies in which they live in, which make them very vulnerable to HIV. According to AVERT, sex workers are among the highest risk groups for HIV. I have a research study done by the 20th International AIDS Conference in Melbourne, Australia. They studied HIV among female sex workers, and they found that infections could be reduced up to 33 to 46% if prostitution were legal. Prostitutes are scared and fear the law enforcement. They rush the process of STD, or they don't even do it at all. According to Huffington Post in Brazil, where prostitution was legal, a study was found that prevention programs reached almost half of sex workers, and 60% know where they can take free HIV tests. To conclude, I would like to state that all these facts I presented, I refuted the main proposition by my opponent that legalizing prostitution will solve the negative aspects that come with the selling of sex.
All right, well, you basically take a counter position to the advocate's point, and you're arguing that the opposite would be the effect, and you're perfectly within your rights to do that sort of thing. I sometimes think that that may be a little bit a dangerous approach, but it is a very direct approach. But it means that you have to be certain about the contradictions of your claims, that they have to be mutually exclusive, that both things can't be true. And I think on a couple of points that's a little problematic. The structure of the argument is laid out, but I don't know that you're addressing all the issues the advocate presented. You basically present the counterclaims that you're going to be talking about, that decriminalization is going to reduce harms and it's going to reduce HIV and AIDS. I don't know that those are the only issues that came up from the advocate's point of view. In fact, I know that there's another point that comes up that you do talk about, but it's not previewed there. The first argument dealing with the post-traumatic stress disorder, your argument basically says legalization would reduce some of the violence associated with this, that there'd be more cooperation with the cops, that sort of thing. But I'm not exactly sure that shows that from the advocate's evidence, which suggested that the prostitutes often have greater trauma to them. I don't know if it's because of the illegal things that go on, they're getting beat or tortured or hurt, or if it's because of the position that they're in, in the sexual exchange for money. I'm not sure which is the source. So if it's that second thing, which I think is what the inference that the advocate was making, I'm not sure your argument answers that particular point. I did think that you had an interesting piece of information here based on the New Zealand data that suggested that legalization would actually decrease the number of sex workers. At least that seems to be what the inference is from your argument there, in which case then there would be reduced PTSD with legalization because there would be fewer sex workers, but that doesn't necessarily deny that there'd be harmful consequences to those who were in that profession. The argument on the second point, you challenged the lack of evidence. This is the slavery issue, and again, I think there's some arguments here that deal with how people are treated, but not necessarily kind of the pseudo-value argument that the advocate is making. I think that might be a better point to argue there, is that that's a value claim more than it is an issue of fact. The one statistic that you present on this point is the most conclusionary statistic, and it's really hard to swallow. It's a little bit tough. So Cundiff says legalization would reduce rape by 25%. And we don't get any explanation of how that conclusion was arrived at, why they believe that that's the case. I've repeatedly heard that rape is a crime of violence, not a crime of sex, and so as a consequence, I have at least been conditioned to doubt the notion that somebody suddenly gets relief from having access to prostitutes and they don't need to go out and rape people. I don't know what the basis of that statistic is, and I think that's a little bit problematic. It stretches credulity, and as a result, it makes your argument seem less believable. The HIV argument, there's a similar kind of argument that says there's going to be a decline. The explanation of it seems to be in the second part from Brazil, because if it's legal, they're more likely to have access to programs to be able to test themselves or or know more about prevention techniques. I think that's the way you would probably want to reorganize the way that evidence is presented, put that information first, and then tell us how that could then result in a decline of up to 43%. Then I think it makes a little bit more sense. All right, thank you.